Stephanie Levitz is here, senior parliamentary reporter with the Globe and Mail. There's 1 second. There's the Prime Minister. Oh, there you go. Mark Carney said nothing. He was asked earlier today, Steph, how he expected his budget to pass. He said more people will vote for it than voted against it. And true statement, but there's a lot of steps along the way to that destination.
Yeah.
Persistent reports. Your paper, I think, first to report it. Now we're seeing others hearing it, don't know it. 2 New Democrats could abstain. What's the latest intel you have on what's going to happen?
Yeah, I think the abstention piece is really interesting, right? Because I don't mean to, bore the viewers with parliamentary procedure, but in the House of Commons, an abstention is not a thing. It's very difficult to stand up and say, I abstain on principle.
Right.
If you use the app, though, David, the app you can press a button that says you can deliberately abstain. And I find that really interesting because I think that it allows for either, it'll be obvious to those of us watching online, like, did someone actually abstain or did they trip and drop their phone down the toilet at the very last minute?
Which happened a lot during COVID. We did see some weird logins.
So,
but Steph, on that, with Elizabeth May voting yes, they need either one more to vote yes from the opposition. Tough to see that at this point, or 2 abstentions, I think, at this point is where we are, right?
Yeah, I mean, the math is, like the Prime Minister said, they've got to do some math. I still, to this hour, find it remarkable that has the Prime Minister done the math? Like, he must be certain, or is he not certain? I don't know. I find that interesting. I find it interesting that if, let's say, the New Democrats had made up their mind, had decided what to do, they did not come out at 1 o'clock this afternoon like Liz May did, or 3:30, and say, okay, here is our choice. We're deliberately being left on a cliffhanger, and I wonder what is the ultimate end game there for everybody, but 2, let's recall, this isn't the first confidence vote we're going to have, like the last, rather.
No.
Yeah.
Right?
The budget's a big one, though.
The budget's a big, it is, but we're going to have a budget implementation bill and other confidence motions, and are we setting up for this every time? I don't know.
Well, there wasn't a lot of drama, Rosie, around the amendment and the sub-amendment to the budgets, right? Because I think, the Bloc, both the Conservatives and the Bloc put forward separate amendments saying the government should fall, and then they each voted against the other's amendment because of the way this town works. But this one is a little bit different. I don't know if the next confidence vote would rise to this, but who knows, right? I mean, we don't know what we're in for, and that's the nature of minority parliaments like this.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if Elizabeth May doesn't feel the government's doing the right thing, she could change her mind. Who knows? There's all sorts of scenarios here. I think this is probably the most dramatic of the moments for now, because it is the first moment when Canadians are, A, paying attention, and maybe in a real way, and are observing what their elected officials are choosing to do in this moment. And I don't think that is a small thing. I'm not saying people are sitting around their dinner table watching us and talking about this. I don't think that's what's going to happen. But I do think that they would certainly notice if they were forced into an election, and they would certainly notice who did that. I will say, from being here, though, I've covered other elections where the first week and 10 days was about who caused this, and it is never the prevailing ballot box issue. People get over that, right? The problem is that this would be a remarkable turn of events for the government to fall on this budget in this short a time frame with not really having been given a lot of runway to implement the things that it's choosing to do. I know the Conservatives would like to see more action. I'm sure many Canadians agree, but it still hasn't been very long.
No, it's kind of, Rick, we're into that Dumb and Dumber meme. You're telling me there's a chance, and we'll find out. There's 3 minutes and 55 seconds before the vote. We should say that Mark Carney, the only thing he did say, Rick, going in there to reporters was looking good. So either he was complimenting the reporters on how they looked tonight, or he feels pretty good about the chances of this vote passing. Rick, I mean, what do you draw from that 2-phrase recitation from the Prime Minister?
Well, looking good. I mean, what's interesting out here is, of course, there's negotiations which are going to supposedly are close to being completed between the federal government of Alberta on a pipeline and/or some discussion about these laws, 9 bad laws that Danielle Smith wants amended or changed. So there's an added little wrinkle out here in Alberta is that people are wondering, well, what, if there were to be an election, what would happen to all of that? Because even today, Premier Smith was asked about it, and she gave the impression again today that memorandum of understanding between the Carney government and the Smith government is very, very close, like could be within the next day or 2. So that's another little wrinkle here, adding to the uncertainty that is out there across the country. This is an added uncertainty in Alberta as to what would happen then.
Okay, Premier Smith did speak there. I didn't hear that, so that's good to know, Rick. But Rick, I just got to ask you, we only got 2 minutes and 40 seconds before we got to look at the vote. If the Conservatives don't vote 100% no, What are the consequences of that? Does that upset people in the base? Is there a downside to the Conservatives not getting everybody on board to vote against this?
Well, I think there are some people who are thinking, let's say, looking at the big picture and saying this is probably not the time, as much as they do not want Carney to be the prime minister, this is not the time to have an election. So there is, that sizable group of people. Yeah. But there are also other people who just want Carney out. It doesn't matter. Just get rid of him, get him out of there. We want another chance. Maybe Pierre will work some magic somehow, and he'll become prime minister. So I think there are people within the Conservative base who are thinking about this strategically and saying, we don't want an election now because it could backfire on us. But I think there is another group that really just is still stinging from the fact that Conservatives didn't win, and the Liberals are still there, albeit with a different prime minister, and just want them defeated. So those people are not going to be happy until Carney and the Liberals are gone.
Okay, we're going to re-rack the Prime Minister's arrival there, and just so you can hear for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Here's Mark Carney himself with the looking good as he walks into Parliament.
Give the votes, Prime Minister. Yep.
Looking good.
You got it? Give the votes.
Okay, Benzi, the election bus looks good. The vote looks good. I mean, what are your thoughts as the Prime Minister goes in? That doesn't look like a guy who's worried about his first budget failing.
No, it doesn't, David. And, Rick was speaking about Premier Smith. I was speaking to Premier Doug Ford today, and he's the most powerful Conservative in the country. And he said that he wants this budget to pass. He thinks it's too important a time to be messing around. And, he said the budget's not perfect, but there are things in the budget that that the Ontario government would like to see implemented. I think, to Rick's point, the Alberta government would like to see some of the things implemented, and some of the things that aren't mentioned specifically in the budget that are coming down the pipe, so to speak, down the pipe.
Right.
But I think Carney certainly projects confidence, and frankly, let's say the budget doesn't pass. I still think Carney would probably win an election. He may not have a majority. We may get the same result, but if we get the same result, the Conservatives will be looking for a new leader. So I don't know if Pierre Poilievre really wants an election. I don't believe he does.
That's that boomerang effect that Rick was talking about. Okay, The countdown clock has just gone to 0. The bell's still ringing a little bit, so they're giving MPs a little bit of extra time to get in there. But the voting is going to start really at any minute now. And as we understand it, Rosie, Mark Gerritsen, the whip, has requested a roll call vote. Is that what am I understanding this correctly?
That's my understanding.
Oh. There's cheering coming from inside. We don't yet have a television feed inside the House as the slate is. Here we go. Here's Chris Workington, the whip for the Conservative Party, and Mark Gerritsen. Workington on the left, Gerritsen on the right of your screen, coming into the House of Commons to get ready for this vote. So we're expecting a roll call vote where they all stand one after another. And we're going to carry that live and watch for the outcomes as it will start with the government, and we're not surprised. They will all undoubtedly vote yes. But Steph, what are we watching for? If we're watching for signs of trouble in terms of an election, in Parliament falling, or signs of change, what's the first clue maybe going to come?
Who's not in their seat, right? Which is something to look for. But again, we go back to the virtual voting, right? It is possible they are not in their seat because they are voting on an app. One wonders, though, especially for the government, you would think all butts in seats as best they can. I know, Rosie, you said there are a few that won't be there. This is not the time. And same with the Conservatives. Who isn't there, right? And then we're going to wait and see.
Okay.
Champagne, appuyé par M. Carney, propose que la Chambre approuve la politique budgétaire générale du gouvernement. The 10-minute period for members voting electronically has started, and the House will now proceed to the vote for members participating in person. All those in favor of the motion will please rise.
Mr. Carney.
Mr. Carney.
Mr. Ali.
Mr. Ali.
Madame Diab. Mr. McDonald-Malpeck.
Mr. McDonald-Malpeck.
Mr. McGinty.
Mr. McGinty.
Mr. Lightbound.
Monsieur Lightbound.
Mr. Robertson.
Mr. Robertson.
Ms. de Brusen.
Mr. Brusen.
Mr. Leblanc.
Monsieur Leblanc.
Madame Joly.
Madame Joly.
Monsieur McKinnon-Gatineau.
Monsieur McKinnon-Gatineau.
Monsieur Champagne.
Monsieur Champagne.
Ms. Thompson.
Ms. Thompson.
Mr. Hodgson. Mr. Ananda Sangari.
Ananda Sangari.
Ms. Haidu.
Ms. Haidu.
Madame Michel.
Madame Michel.
Monsieur Guilbeault.
Monsieur Guibault.
Mr. Fraser.
Mr. Fraser.
Mr. Sidhu Brampton East.
Mr. Cedar Brampton East.
Mrs. Oshelski.
Ms. Ajeski.
Mr. Solomon.
Mr. Solomon.
Mrs. Valdez.
Mrs. Valdez.
Monsieur Duclos.
Monsieur Duclos.
Ms. Gould.
Ms. Gould.
Madame Petitpas-Taylor.
Taylor.
Mr. Blair.
Mr. Blair.
Mr. Wilkinson.
Mr. Wilkinson.
Ms. Fry.
Ms. Fry.
Ms. Chager.
Okay,
Mr.
you saw there, it is all
Mr.
going as
Franciscatos.
expected to this point. People that the Conservatives have said might be uncomfortable with this budget or unhappy with being demoted from cabinet. We saw Bill Blair, we saw Jonathan Wilkinson, we saw Stephen Guilbeault. They all voted for this. So if there is disarray in the Liberal caucus or turmoil, there's certainly no evidence of it yet in the voting. The Speaker, Francis Scarpaleggia, could very well play a key role in this, as we're going to go through the in-person voting, and then there's a 10-minute period where the digital voting has begun. Once that is over, MPs who feel that their vote wasn't recorded or was recorded improperly, they will have a chance to correct the vote. We've seen this happen a bunch of times on votes that weren't nearly as dramatic as this. If it is a tie at the end of it, through whatever machinations of voting we get, it will fall to the Speaker of the House of Commons to cast the tie-breaking vote. Convention is that they vote for the status quo, so the government would not fall, but that's not necessarily something they wanted to see happen. And Nate Erskine-Smith, as Rosie pointed out, just voted. Spoke to him on my show last week about the video, Rosie, that he put out, voicing his concerns about the lack of ambition in certain areas in this budget, but still said he would vote for it. And there, true to his words, he has voted for the budget.
Yeah, and I think watching the excitement and the applause, obviously that's the theater sort of portion of this, but it is worth remembering that these do become sort of momentum moments for governments and even for the opposition party if they're all there voting against. They use that to sort of get their caucus riled up on the same page. It becomes sort of a bonding moment, for lack of a better word. So it is a moment in time that is important for them as a team as well. I was just waiting to see if Mr. Gere was in there, Richard Gere.
No, James Maloney, who was his sponsor for his visit here on Parliament Hill today, is there. I guess he didn't skip the vote to go to the Dalai Lama film, and I'm sure Mark Carney is comfortable with that.
I mean, we wouldn't expect anything unusual, frankly, on the government benches, right? That's what Mark Gerritsen told me on Sunday. We wouldn't expect that people would be voting in any way but this on this side of the House.
We're getting some virtual votes results coming in, Rosie, and Leah Gazan, the NDP MP for Winnipeg Centre, I believe is her riding. Yes. She has voted no in this so far. So the NDP, and Steph, you can jump in on this, we were told they were going to all vote as one. They're hoping to vote as one. So if Leah Gazan, unless she is like breaking ranks, it looks like the bulk of the NDP will be voting no, which then goes back to the reporting we saw in your paper last night and the rumors we've been hearing as well that maybe it's a couple of NDP abstentions that staves off an election.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to say, look, vote as one, what does that mean for abstain, right? Is abstain, I mean, the word is what it is. You're not voting, but you're not voting intentionally. You are saying, I'm deliberately not casting a ballot. Does that, maybe I'm being like semantic splitting hairs here, but is that voting as one or isn't it voting as one?
Well, and that
Laurie Idlout has also voted no. She is the MP for Nunavut. So just to flag that, to let people know.
Which is interesting because Nunavut was getting some things in the budget, so there was some thought that perhaps she would be inclined to at least abstain. But I think Steph's point is an important one because Don Davies told me, and I know he reiterated other places, yes, everyone has to vote on the same page, but abstentions are still allowed.
Right.
So just because someone abstains, they don't view that in the NDP as saying, I support the budget or I'm against the party. They view it really as something else, a way to get them out of an election is essentially what he means, right?
Well, Benzie, on that, if it falls to like the leader and who is also the whip to abstain to avoid an election, that's a tough spot for Don Davies to be in as the interim leader as the party seeks to rebuild. Oh, and there's Elizabeth May. Sorry, Elizabeth May. She voted yes. She's there. So just now, just the opposition benches will start voting. We are seeing Conservatives and Bloc Québécois MPs also voting no on the virtual app. Sorry to invite you in, Rob, and then cut you off, but this live TV events are happening there. And now we're going with the Conservative side, and people are starting to stand to vote no beginning with Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservatives. So the no votes will continue. Benzi, go ahead. Sorry, man.
No worries, David. I think Steph makes a really good point. Abstention is not necessarily a bad thing. Don Davey doesn't want an election right now. His party can't afford one. They don't have a leader, he's the interim leader. They aren't an official party in the Commons. So the idea of them having a House leader is a conceit more than an actual job, because they are 7 independent MPs in the chamber because they didn't win enough seats in the last election to form official status, to get official status. So I don't read too much into it. I agree with Stephanie. I think that he can, the 5 or so of them can vote for it, and the others can abstain electronically. And you know what? No one is going to fault them. It's not going to hurt the New Democrats down the road. They're in the middle of a leadership race. Heather McPherson, it's good for her posturing to vote against this budget, but it's not probably good for the party if they have an election right now, because they could go from 7 to 0.
Right. Okay, Robert Benzi, we're going to have to let you go because you've got to go catch a flight. I don't know if it's a campaign plane or if you're just getting out of town before things go sideways. But we want to thank you for being here, even though you're under such a tight deadline. So, Rob Benzi, Queen's Park Bureau Chief of the Star. See you, pal. Thanks so much for being here. Rick, based on what we're seeing so far, some New Democrats voting no, Conservatives, as expected, also voting no. It is going to come down, it seems. We know Leah Gazan and Lori Idlout have voted no. We're going to wait to see what's going to happen with the rest of the New Democrats. And I see Don Davies there on the screen. He may have a big decision to make, Rick Bell.
Yes, now suddenly I'm getting nervous because I thought for sure the Nunavut, was that not on the major projects list? A project for Nunavut?
Yes, sorry, Rick. I was just getting an update in my ear there. Lori Idlout's the MP for Nunavut. There is money in the budget in the Infrastructure Community Fund, whatever the proper title is, for a university campus in Nunavut. She had been recorded as a no vote on the Commons webpage, but now that vote has disappeared. So I don't know. Look, I don't know if it's a glitch in the matrix, Rick. You know, if there's an update in the software happening. If the vote has changed, but she had voted no, now it is just no vote. This will all get reconciled in the minutes afterwards when they get that opportunity. But one of the pressure points people were pointing to, Rick, for various New Democrat MPs is that there's specific projects in their riding, in this budget, that would be difficult to vote against, was the point. And that was one of the things people pointed to for the MP for Nunavut.
Right, exactly. So I was quite surprised. That's when I was getting nervous, when I saw that was a no vote. But now you've calmed me down a little bit.
Right.
If that has in fact changed, then the world may be unfolding as it should.
Right.
Well,
we don't know, as to be honest. We're getting near the end of the Conservative votes right now. There are a lot of empty seats in the shots that we're seeing in the House of Commons, which would suggest that there's quite a few MPs voting virtually. And as I look on the webpage that tracks that, there are quite a few people voting virtually with the app, right? And Rosie, this is where we worry about the strength of technology, whether someone is in fact out of the country and we don't know about it.
Well, and also positioning, right? Because if someone's voting on the app, you don't know how they're voting. So if you're trying to make a decision based on another party or another person, then you can't really do that in this instance.
Right, so there's the Bloc Québécois, Mr. Blanchette, and his finance critic, Mr. Garand. They are the first to the vote. They have 22 MPs. I was told emphatically by their office, Rosie, that they will be there and they will all be voting no. There is no ambiguity on where the Bloc Québécois stood going into this tonight.
No, and unusual because Mr. Blanchette had, after the election, was prepared to give Mr. Carney a lot of runway, right? Was ready to give him a year. And then because he didn't get the right kind of response from the Prime Minister, took that away from him.
And I mean,
okay, there's Alexandre Boulris and Don Davies voting against.
Davies voted no. Okay. The NDP, there are no outstanding. Jenny Kwan has voted no. What? All right, Gord Johns is sitting there. Is Gord Johns stand up or is he abstaining? It looks like he may not be voting. Help me, gang. It looked to me like Gord John.
He did not get up.
He did not get up. Okay, so Elizabeth May is a yes. Gorjon is an abstention. They need one more yes or one more abstention.
Online voting is done.
The broadcasting of the votes for members voting electronically before resuming
So
its proceedings.
I am
Once the
scrolling down
proceedings
now
resume,
to the
I will
riding
invite
of
members who
Edmonton
encounter
Riverbend
technical difficulties
to find out what is
identify
happening
themselves.
with Matt Genereux, who has not been seen. There is no vote registered for Matt Genereux whatsoever. Rick, there's no vote there for Matt Genereux.
That's what I was going
okay,
to interject and ask for that.
So,
where's he in this equation? We're talking about the NDP, which is
Right.
great.
But just
where is he in all
just one second, Rick, just one second. Heather McPherson, Don Davies, Alexandra Boulerice, and Jenny Kwan all voted no. Gorjons did not vote. He stayed seated. So Laurie Idlout, we need to just check on that because that was a vote that was cast as no, then disappeared. There's still no vote recorded there for Laurie Idlout, which is an interesting one, if that's in fact the case. And we know that Leah Gazan voted no virtually. Matt Genereux was not yet voted. Sorry, Rick, I just wanted to bring people up to speed.
Laurie Idlout's an abstention.
Laurie Idlout is an abstention. So there you go. Gorjons doesn't stand up. Laurie Idlout abstains virtually. Matt Genereux may abstain virtually, it seems, or just not vote. And Rick, I'll come back to you, I promise. But if it's only 2 abstentions and 1 yes vote, it means the speaker's going to have to vote to break the tie. If there's 3 abstentions, the Liberals win this by 1 vote, and the speaker does not have the vote. Let's listen to Francis
Who are
Scarpaleggia.
not able to vote due to technical difficulties, they may now use the raise hand function and the chair will recognize them. Ms. Gazan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to make sure, like, this budget had nothing for MMI.
I can't hear the honourable member. I
Not
can't
going to
hear
be
the
allowed to
honourable
do
member,
that.
but
Yes, trying to give a speech, that will not be allowed.
the honourable member, if I could have a bit of silence in the House so I can hear the honourable member. How does the honourable member vote?
Yes, I just want to make sure.
Is that a yes?
It's not the moment.
Yeah. Okay, that's Leah Gazan trying to give a speech when she simply got an opportunity to say whether she voted yes or no or abstained. And so her vote is registered as a no, and they're just going to let her confirm it, or that's
No,
it?
I'm not.
Okay.
Because
The honourable official opposition House leader has a point.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I had technical difficulty. I would like to vote no.
Okay, that would have been big news. If Andrew Scheer had decided to let this pass, that would have been big news. So there's a clarification
Mr. Reid,
there.
yes.
Mr. Speaker, I was unable to use my app. I would like to vote no.
Anyone else? Okay. The table will now compile the results of the vote.
Nays pour 170, 170. Nays contre 168, 163.
Je déclare la motion adoptée.
Wow. There we go. Okay.
So there you have it.
David will be at work tomorrow.
That is a typo that was initially on the screen, the 177. The final vote count is 170 to 168. The vote of Elizabeth May, what appears to be the abstentions of Laurie Idlout and Gorjons and possibly Matt Genereux for the Conservatives were enough for the government to get a majority vote on their first budget without the need of a tie or a speaker to break the tie. Interesting that some Conservatives stood up very last minute to make sure they had a no vote recorded, either a technical issue or maybe a tactical issue that you wanted to see where this was going to go before you ended up having an election. So, drama past. Rick Bell, I cut you off there. Let's bring you in. Your thoughts on this? You did not have to race home and write a column. We're going to keep the cameras up to look for reaction as people come out. But your thoughts on this? The Carney government's first budget passes, no immediate Christmas election.
Yes, well, as I said at the beginning, I think there was a lot of anticipation. There was a lot of feeling that something may happen. But I always thought that in the end, It's just so early. There's so much going on. The election, having an election at this point is not something that, as I said, the boomerang effect. If somebody causes an election, they could well be punished for having done so, especially so early in the mandate of this government.
Okay.
And you know, the Conservatives still could go home and say, except in perhaps the case of one, they could still say we voted against the budget, we don't like the budget, we think the budget is terrible for A, B, C, D, E, F, G reasons. They could still say that, while at the same time not having to face the electorate having helped cause the election.
Okay, Steph, Shannon Stubbs did not vote as of right now. I know there's been some talk of a medical reason.
That is my understanding.
But she has been posting on social media and on LinkedIn. I'm told by Mr. Poilievre's office, MP Stubbs has approved medical leave months ago before the PM announced the budget, and that's why. Not going to go into the specifics of that. I have an explanation
Mr. Carney,
here.
Prime Minister, how you feeling? Come on back. I tried.
Okay,
Sorry.
the answer was pretty good. He feels better for the country. There you go. So Shannon Stubbs approved medical leave. Matt Genereux, no explanation as to why that is, though maybe he has already mentally resigned. If he has not technically resigned, I do not know. But Gord Johns, Laurie Idlout, and Elizabeth May. That's the reason the Carney government survived this vote.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess, you know, we've all said it. The New Democrats do not want an election. And I think all parties have something to lose here. The New Democrats, perhaps most acutely for the New Democrats, is they're in the midst of trying to figure out who they are as a party, right? Their leader, their next leader will choose a direction for them that may be different or distinct from where they've been, where they'd like to go. And so it becomes awfully difficult, to fight an election when what is the platform you put before Canadians? You don't have any idea of what your party's going to look like. And so you could fight an election on holding Mr. Carney to account. You could fight an election for, we need more NDP MPs in the House of Commons, we need a bigger up-it. That's hard convincing to do. And so, I think the risk here for the New Democrats is that the Conservatives can now beat them again with this cudgel of you're supporting the Liberal government, you're supporting the Liberal government. I don't know if that argument gets old in politics now. It's not the same as the supply and confidence agreement. And I think, interim leader Don Davies and, Gord Johns, Laurie will have to come a bit clean and say, okay, is this the modus operandi going forward?
Mark Gerritsen, the Liberal whip on his way out there, Rosie just said, we live to see another day. I'm being told it is a legitimate and clear medical reason for Ms. Stubbs, but also maybe that my assessment of the mental resignation before the actual is probably a legitimate and clear assessment of the situation.
Said you're going, right? Yeah. And sorry, you tried to scrum the Prime Minister.
Whenever you get a chance to grab him, you grab him.
You can't stop me.
Nope.
When you've already said you're going to resign, I just don't know that you feel compelled to have a say anymore, right? Although he still represents his constituents, I'm just not sure how invested he was in the outcome. And frankly, maybe that was agreed upon, right? Maybe knowing that Conservatives don't want an election, maybe they said to Mr. Genereux, that's totally fine if you're not going to participate. But I 100% agree with Steph. This gets the NDP out of a pickle, to be honest, right? You can say that you'd be willing to fight an election, but what you would fight it on, who you would do it with, and whether it would actually improve anything, I think was really up for grabs.
Okay, here's a NDP interim leader and party whip who pulled something off here tonight. Don Davies, with his caucus standing behind him, about to explain why the NDP just did what they did. Let's listen in.
In the lead up to Budget 2025, New Democrats made it very clear that it needs to address head-on the crises facing Canadian families and invest in the programs that Canadians rely on. We have record unemployment, particularly among young people. We have a housing shortage and a cost of living crisis in communities across the country. Our cherished public healthcare system needs to be expanded, not cut. We need better childcare. Since the budget was presented almost 2 weeks ago, we have taken the time to listen to our constituents and to meet with stakeholders. It is clear from those conversations that this is a budget that does not address the real needs facing Canadians. It fails to meet the moment deliver transformational change, or address the urgent needs facing Canadians. While there are elements of the budget which reflect our concerns, on the whole, this is a conservative budget. From reducing healthcare funding to provinces, to making deeper cuts to services than Stephen Harper's budgets did, including to programs that are helping Canada's most marginalized communities, to reversing action on the climate crisis, this budget fails to deliver the policies our country needs. It particularly fails Indigenous people. But through these discussions, it became equally clear that Canadians do not want an election right now. The consequences of defeating this budget would not be to improve it or to help Canadians. It would be to plunge the country into an election only months after the last one, and while we still face an existential threat from the Trump administration. On that basis, we engaged in conversations with the government about improvements that could strengthen the budget and earn our support. At this time, the Liberals have not been willing to make those changes. And so, we have decided to put the interests of our country first, to vote against the budget, but to help prevent an election. Canada is facing instability and overlapping crises. In these challenging times, we must put our country's well-being first above partisan interests. When the next election comes, whenever that may be, Canadians will hold Mark Carney responsible and to account for his record and for the choices that he made in this budget. But today, New Democrats are choosing stability over political games.
But it's not just partisan interest, though. I mean, your party's abstentions just allowed for the government to cut thousands of public worker jobs. How do you square that being the party of workers?
Well, this is a Liberal budget, and this is what happens when you vote for Liberals, is these are the kind of neoliberal, neoconservative policies that you get. And we've opposed this budget. That's why we stood up and we're voting against the budget. We can't support it. They did not earn our support. And we tried to make changes to this budget. But at the same time, again, Canadians clearly don't want an election right now. And given the serious economic challenges facing our country right now, we don't think that it would be good for our country. So New Democrats have expressed our opposition to this budget. And we have said that we are not going to force an election right now that clearly Canadians don't want and our country doesn't need.
Was this about your electoral prospects?
Go ahead.
Was this about your electoral prospects, the fact that the NDP can't afford an election right now?
Not at all. No, I mean, this is not about us. This is about Canadians, and that's why the NDP, we took our time last week to go across the country to talk to Canadians, our constituents, and find out what they said and what they wanted. And it is very clear. There is a strong consensus in this country that Canadians do not want an election basically 6 months after the last one. They also are feeling the precarity and the instability of the moment. We have Donald Trump still menacing our country and serious economic issues. Canadians want us to be in Parliament addressing those serious issues, and so that's why we're taking the position that we're taking.
Why isn't your caucus united? Why isn't your caucus united? Why aren't you showing a united front?
Well, look behind me. Our caucus is entirely united.
You voted differently.
No, we didn't vote differently. We voted no against this budget, and we had a couple of abstentions, which is, of course, that happens in many cases, but nobody voted at cross purposes.
Did you get it against the government? Prop up the government. The abstentions prop up the government.
I think there were abstentions on the Conservative side, too. Are they propping up the government? Why don't you go ask Pierre Poilievre?
Why is it your responsibility to avoid an election? Why is it the NDP's responsibility to avoid an election? Isn't that the Liberals' responsibility?
Yes, it is. In fact, it's all parliamentarians' job.
Why abstain? Why allow them the chance to not go to an election by abstent? Why make that choice?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding your question.
You're saying it's the Liberals' job, but yet you're helping the Liberals avoid an election by abstaining. Why?
Look, there's 343 people in the House of Commons. I've said from the beginning that it's Mark Carney's responsibility as the Prime Minister of a minority government to craft a budget that can earn majority support. But at the same time, we're in a unique situation right now, 6 months after the last election, where Canadians don't want an election right now. I haven't heard anybody dispute that. There is no strong desire for an election among the Canadian people. And we believe that it's important to tap into what Canadians want. And second, what's very important is the economic precarity that we're facing right now. You know, we have serious economic issues. Mr. Trump is changing his mind every day, and it's not the right time for our country to plunge into an election.
L'autre langage officiel, maintenant, si on peut, dans l'autre langage officiel, maintenant, si on peut, parce que tout à l'heure, j'ai laissé Madame parler en anglais.
Monsieur Boulris,
D'accord, merci, Monsieur
parler
Boulris.
français.
Merci, Monsieur Boulris.
Did you have
No, we've got listeners. I mean, on a besoin d'un petit peu de français, s'il vous plaît.
Oui,
si je peux.
peut-être.
Oui, je sais que je suis seul, là, mais il y a des millions de Canadiens qui nous écoutent en
Monsieur
français.
Boulris à parler.
C'est bien. One or two and...
Oui.
Monsieur Boulris, vous semblez avoir mis de côté certains principes pour éviter une élection.
Aside your principles to avoid an election. How long will you do that? Well, you know, this is a very disappointing budget, and we said so in the NDP, that it was primarily a conservative budget that would harm the environment, and it's kind of strange to see Ms. May vote in favor of this budget when she supports fighting climate change. But we wanted to hear what Canadians said, what they felt, so we went into the communities last week, and the message was clear. We don't like this budget, but it would be irresponsible to go into an election at this time. So we took our responsibilities as parliamentarians. We voted against the budget, but at the same time, we were responsible, saying Canadians don't want a budget. We have a few months ahead of us. We'll see what the next steps are. This is a minority government.
Au printemps, vous êtes prêts à ce moment-là, au printemps.
In the spring, you're prepared to vote in a confidence vote? Well, we would be prepared to vote against the liberal government that's acting like a conservative government, cutting public services and not taking into account unemployment among young people. We're prepared to do that in the spring, but today we are behaving responsibly and listening to Canadians who said, listen, we don't like this budget, but please don't bring down the government.
Avez-vous obtenu quelque chose pour votre abstention au NPD?
Did you receive something for your abstentions? Well, we had some discussions. We pushed the Liberals to give us some concrete results, but nothing happened. So we decided to vote no, but in order to avoid an election, we did what we had to do.
Does this mean you're not going to vote against this government until there's a new leader? Like, are you giving them free pass for like the next 4 or 5 months?
No, absolutely not. No, this is our vote for today. And, you know, tonight the government dropped a 600-page Ways and Means motion that will be voted on tomorrow. And then, of course, there's the Budget Implementation Act, or maybe several of them. We haven't had a chance to review them. So this is our position for tonight, and we're going to be evaluating each measure that comes as it comes.
Mr. Davis, what concessions did you get for these abstentions?
We didn't get any concessions.
You're
didn't get anything in return?
We're not propping anybody up. We voted no against the budget. We voted no.
Do you feel like you have any leverage now to push for amendments to this budget, to slow down the process of the implementation and therefore the cuts to the public service? I mean, what leverage do you have left now that you've abstained from this vote?
Well, I've said from the beginning that in a minority parliament where there are 3 opposition parties that hold a balance of power, all of us at one point or another have some leverage. We're going to continue to have conversations with the Liberals. I mean, we were engaged in discussions with them over the past few weeks. We did put forth a number of positive proposals that would have gathered. Well, we're not going to bargain in public at this point, but they were concrete proposals that reflected the needs of working families and people across this country, and the Liberals were not ready to say yes to them. So we're going to continue pushing for policies to help working people that elected us to this Parliament, and we'll continue using that leverage in the days and weeks ahead.
But you didn't get anything. You didn't get anything out of this last deal. By you abstaining, you knew that they would, the budget would pass, and you didn't get anything out of it.
The Democrats voted no to this budget.
Yes,
but you say that you voted for the interest of the country, that this is your position for the interest of the country. But how could you go into an election? You don't even have a leader.
Well, I am the leader right now. We don't have a permanent leader. That's true.
How could you hit the trail with all the problems and the situation with the NDP?
You know, I don't think any political party in the House of Commons wants an election right now. I haven't heard anybody say they want an election. Because, you know, we all understand we just had an election in April. This is the first budget of this new government. And so, you know, I think our first obligation here is to do what Jack Layton always taught us, which is people want Parliament to work. And so we're doing what New Democrats always do. We're coming to Parliament with positive, constructive ideas and trying to make it work. This is not about us. This is about Canadians. And the vast, vast, vast majority of Canadians want us to try to make this parliament work. They do not want an election, and frankly, we don't think our country needs one at this point. So we're putting our country ahead of partisan interests, and I think that most parliamentarians, if not all, should do that.
What is your specific reason why?
When did you decide that two of you will abstain? Would you still have abstained if enough Conservatives had abstained, or would you all have voted no in that
Look,
scenario?
we caucus regularly. We have a tight, united caucus, and we made our own decisions on this. We decided what we were going to do, and it was up to the other parties. I mean, we have 7 votes out of 343. I mean, every other party in that House of Commons had a greater chance of influencing the outcome than we did.
Why Laurie and
So-
why Gordon? Why did you two specifically? Why was it specifically you two?
Mr. Johns, did you abstain? Can you explain why?
Or Laurie as well?
Sure.
You might have to.
Laurie as well?
First, did you want to go ahead, Laurie? Okay. Well, first of all, we made it clear last week, well, the week before last when the House was sitting, that we were going to go back to our ridings and listen to our constituents. I talked to every single mayor, 9 mayors in my riding, 3 regional district chairs, 17 elected chief councillors. All of them were unanimous and they didn't want the government to fall. So I did consultation. Unlike the Conservative MP on Vancouver Island who was on CBC radio just on Friday night saying that we shouldn't have an election, that nobody wanted an election, that he heard from his constituents all week. They didn't want an election, that there should be an election next fall. What did he do? He voted for an election. So I'm sorry, we're being the adult in the room listening to our constituents who said right now is not the time to have an election. In the face of Donald Trump, that we need to stand united. We're going to fight. We're going to fight tomorrow for the things that we put on the table that we're not going to bargain in public about. And we're going to fight until we get more for Canadians. That is what Canadians expect of us, and that's what we're going to do.
What is your message to voters
Just very quickly, having lived in the 44th Parliament of always being accused that we're propping up the government, I couldn't live with that. Not with this budget. This budget doesn't do enough for Indigenous peoples, and I could not do that. So that's why I abstained, because we're not propping up the government.
What is your message to voters that was offered by the government in the budget? Wasn't there something in the budget for your riding?
There were things for my writing, and that's why I had to abstain.
Could I have that in ineptitude? I know that CBC North will want that quote in ineptitude.
What was the question?
Just could I have you say that in ineptitude, just so your constituents actually can get it too?
Tana negwang nek pimageruk sakyak titiyo madlakik punganara raw kama takwa takutitiyo marok punga libro kun ikayok tuingin nama takwatitiya ka kamarik punga takwa libro kut imanelyong nek titlugi ujaksuk titikan nega kapugo ukyok taktong mionit ikpigusuk kama uvan negwarok tuni ikpigusuk kama.
What is your message to voters? What is your message to voters? What is your message to voters? When did you decide your vote was no? When did you decide that?
We caucused as late as today. So we made our final decision this morning.
Knowing how you were going to vote?
Of course we did, yes.
What is your message to voters who already saw your party as close to the Liberals in the supply and confidence agreement?
I'm sorry.
What is your message to voters who already saw the NDP as an extension of the Liberals through the supply and confidence agreement? Now you're, once again, it could be seen as helping the Liberals with the budget passing.
Well, voting no to a Liberal budget couldn't be a clearer message that we're not propping up the Liberal government. We voted no tonight. It's a bad budget. It's not a budget that we think that, well, count the votes. I stood in my place and voted no. And we voted no as a party, and it's up to other parties to determine what they do. It was up to any other party to defeat this government if they wanted to, including the Conservatives, including the Bloc, right? And yes, including Elizabeth May. So in a minority parliament, every vote counts. The NDP voted no to this budget tonight. We're going to continue to work for a better budget for people, and we're going to continue to do what Canadians want us to do, which is work and solve the problems that are facing them. Thanks very much, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, that is NDP interim leader Don Davies and a cast of 7. His caucus standing behind him, even though some of them stayed in their chair, literally and virtually in the vote, giving enough abstentions to go on top of the abstention of Matt Genereux and Shannon Stubbs from the Conservatives and the yes vote from Green Party leader Elizabeth May to allow the budget to pass. They are wearing the responsibility of that in the questions you saw there, but they are the final vote stacked on top of others. Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne spoke to reporters just a few minutes ago. Let's listen to what the finance minister has to say on his first budget clearing a big hurdle right now.
Ms. May, that you didn't get support from the opposition?
Listen, what matters today is that, people decided to, parliamentarians, they voted in favor, they decided to put Canada first. And that's really what matters today. People in their constituency and people are looking. There's enough uncertainty in the world. We need to come together to support Canadians, and that's why those who voted in favor, I think, have shown that they are really committed to Canada. And so yes, we keep on working. Every day is a good day to fight for Canada. Merci. Merci. Je veux juste dire en français, écoutez, les parlementaires qui ont voté aujourd'hui ont voté en faveur du Canada. Évidemment, il y a beaucoup d'incertitudes déjà dans le monde. Je pense que les familles canadiennes, les travailleurs, les gens dans la rue s'attendent de leurs parlementaires.
Okay, that is François-Philippe Champagne, the Minister of Finance. I would say being very careful not to gloat there. A somber tone. We got the budget through. It's a good day for Canadians. The work continues. Before that, we heard extensively from NDP Interim Leader Don Davies and his caucus explaining the sort of split vote they did. They voted against the budget, those who voted, but 2 NDP MPs abstained. We've got Rick Bell, Stephanie Levitz, and Rosemary Barton here. We're going to continue Power and Politics for another 6 minutes. Rick Bell, I know the NDP bore the brunt of the questioning there, getting all the blame of propping up the government without any concessions. But I would just note that at the end of the vote, the Conservative House Leader, Andrew Scheer, and the caucus chair, Scott Reid, stood up to say, oh, we couldn't vote on the app, but we'd like to vote no, only after it was clear the budget had passed. Do we really believe the House Leader and the caucus chair needed to vote remotely when they were physically in the House of Commons?
No, the reality, which was spelled out by the NDP leader, is clear. People did not want an election this early on in the mandate of Prime Minister Carney. It was too early. I think most Canadians did not want that, no matter what your political stripe. Conservatives have even spoken out, as Mr. Benzie pointed out. Premier Ford, Premier Smith is negotiating with Carney as we speak. So people did not want an election. So they had to do, we had to play these games to make sure that the government did not fall. And still, the Conservatives could still say they voted no.
Right.
The majority of the NDP could still say they voted no. They can say that, in the case of the NDP people that abstained, they can still say they didn't support the budget, but because of keeping, not having an election, or in the case of Nunavut, getting certain projects, there could justify an abstention. So despite the fact that there were many questions over and over and over again in the NDP scrum trying to say the same thing about them propping the government up and all the rest of it, the reality is most Canadians do not want an election now, but Conservatives wanted to vote no and did. NDPers wanted to vote no, and most of them did, except for the abstentions. The Liberals voted yes, and life will now go on, and the theater will be over and the curtain will come down.
Okay, Steph Levitz, Don Davies, this is a Conservative budget. We tried to change it. They wouldn't give us anything, but we're going to put the country ahead of our interests. I mean, maybe. What did you make of what we just saw?
Yeah, a little bit later in that scrum, he referred to it as a Liberal budget that was inefficient and not good enough. And this probably puts this is where some of the squeeze is in the NDP. This is where some of the squeeze is for the Conservatives, frankly, because Mr. Carney is in the way that perhaps Justin Trudeau was cherry-picking from the New Democrats to keep himself afloat. Mr. Carney is cherry-picking from the Conservatives, and it creates problems for them. I think for Mr. Davies, the choice of having not himself abstain is probably material politically, right? It's not the interim leader saying, I will fall on my sword here. I am taking a principled stand for my party.
And the whip as well, right?
And the whip. So, you can look at that scrum and think, okay, the extent it matters for Canadians, matters for New Democrats. Well, at least the party still opposes this government, this budget. And, to Gord Johns' point, he really did say 2 weeks ago, I was standing in a scrum with him and he was going through the things that were in the budget for his riding and saying, I got to go home and ask, this is awkward. So, they say MPs are supposed to be their constituents' voice in Ottawa, not the other way around.
Rosie, I'm texting the Conservatives saying, am I expected to believe your House Leader was going to vote virtually today? I'm not getting any clarification on it. That was a tactical choice. It certainly seems on its face.
Listen, if he was in the House, I don't know why he would use his app, Mr. Scheer or Mr. Reid, but that is part of the strategy that you can use when you have the app, and fairly smart, frankly, because both of those gentlemen, if they had had to abstain, probably wouldn't have heard about it in their ridings because of how strong and popular they are in their ridings. So, yeah, probably was tactical. We'll see whether or not they want to admit that or not. But the result is the same. They voted strongly against the budget, with the exception of 2 MPs, one who's on medical leave and one who's leaving. So that doesn't damage Pierre Poilievre in any way, right? That he comes out of today, I think, looking pretty good. He stood up to the Prime Minister, and he can now go and say, I was the one who tried to stop him. The Liberals can't gloat, quite frankly, because it wasn't that big a win. It's by the skin of their teeth. And yes, it's a minority government, but I continue to think that it should not have been so unknown up until the last minute.
Yeah. No, my only point on Scheer and Reid is clearly they were not going to let the government fall tonight. They didn't want an election. Nobody wanted an election. And the outcome is we're not having an election. We're going to say goodbye to everyone who's been with us here tonight. Rick Bell, Stephanie Levitz, and Rosemary Barton. Thank you all for watching what will probably be the first of several votes, confidence votes that we'll be covering breathlessly between now and the actual next election. I'm David Cochran. This has been Power and Politics. The budget passes a vote of 170 to 168. The government continues another day. We'll be back in 22 hours with the next edition of Power and Politics, or 21 and a half, actually, because we're 30 minutes over time. Hannah Mansing tonight is next on Power and Politics on CBC News Network. So stay right there. We'll see you tomorrow, gang.
Thanks, David. We're going to come back to you in just a few minutes for the latest on this budget story, but we want to start with some of the other stories that are making headlines this hour as we kick off our program live from Vancouver.
Let the Senate look at it, let anybody look at it, but don't talk about it too much.
Trump pulls a U-turn on the Epstein files, now calling for his party
Canada, the U.S., 2 countries, totally different politics, but we share a border, a media space, and a lot of the same problems. I'm Michael J., and this is Borderline Politics, where we cut through the cliches and compare real policy, culture, and power on both sides of the 49th parallel. From free speech to healthcare, housing to populism. If it matters politically, we're breaking it down. Subscribe for smart, cross-border political insight. 2 countries, 1 conversation.
Now, that middle line is probably going to be the most significant because there is an additional MP from the opposition today who has announced they will be supporting the budget, and that is Green Party leader Elizabeth May. Take a listen.
I'm going to vote yes for the country, for the planet, and for my hope in the future. The Liberals can't count on me voting confidence in the government again without delivering on the words I heard.
When people break away from Trump on one thing, they start to see a lot of other things much more clearly. And then once you stop rationalizing one thing, it becomes a little harder to rationalize all the other stuff.
Loud cheers inside the courtroom as well as outside where security was really tight. There were also cheers among the student demonstrators who had gathered outside her former family home, threatening to